Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another breakfast with Blaha. And today, I'm having steak and avocado. All right, let's talk about high-calorie refeeds and why I don't like to promote hypothetical stuff like this. These are the sort of things that, in the past, on my channel, I used to try to increase the body of knowledge. We would discuss hypothetical concepts that may or may not work in the real world, and the fact that there was evidence to support them. Okay. I used to do a lot of that, and I've gone over completely to practical. And there's a lot of reasons why. It's because what I have found, unfortunately, is that when I put this stuff out here, younger, less experienced lifters tend to take it seriously as advice. Do you see the problem there? Because this is a channel where people come to for advice and to learn, probably not for purely academia. In other words, it would be no different than if I discussed a hypothetical model for blowing up the sun or something stupid that wasn't fitness related. If I did that here, most people would be like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a hypothetical word. We're never going to do this. Probably not a good idea. But when you discuss it when it's training or nutrition related, guess what? People go, not only is this a good idea, I want to work with this hypothesis, they hear he's telling me to do this. And I've learned this a lot more as a coach, as I've been coaching for years now. My younger, more impressionable clients, they'll hear a video of a hypothetical or a study that was done on a hypothetical. And they literally think that that's what they're supposed to do, and they just start doing it. And a lot of you are laughing at this point saying, did it really happen? I'm like, yes. More than you'd realize. But you said in this video 8 years ago, there was a study on this. And what I'm going to say from some of the things I've said from that, from nutrition, discussing those, when it's applied by people who don't understand nutrition, they just get fucking fat. And I've had multiple things like that happen. Right? Where I was discussing a study. Well, I did what you said. I assumed that that's what you thought we were supposed to do, so I started doing that. When it's a person who doesn't even know how to count their calories yet. So again, some of these concepts that get thrown out there, a lot of them you can think, oh yeah, I can see how a person can get fat real quick. Right? They don't even know how to count their calories. But that's worst case scenarios. But the problem with this refeed thing, and I had a guy who brought that up of, you've said that in the past, that in theory, fat gain should be minimal on a really high carb refeed. So couldn't we do it on a cut and go back to cutting? Well, it's a nice hypothesis. The lack of fat gain is true. If you are carbohydrate depleted and in a calorie deficit for at least a week, and you go through and you overfeed heavy for a single day, up to 2 days actually, what does the research say? Well, we only have research on women, but we could assume this applies to men also. But if you're a woman who works out and exercises, your body fat gain from that refeed will be nearly zero. It will be a trace tiny amount if it's entirely carbohydrate. Meaning fat is kept to less than 10% of calories. Why? Because it takes a day or two for de novo lipogenesis to start occurring. Right? Normally, I always point this out, that when your dietary fat starts dropping below about 10% of your calories, humans do start gaining the ability to store carbohydrate as body fat. We don't normally do that, by the way. It's de novo lipogenesis. We don't normally do that. Okay? We do that in bizarre environments, such as when we have certain types of metabolic issues like type 2 diabetes, severe type 2 diabetes, so on and so forth. Doesn't happen normally. But restricting your dietary fat to almost nothing is creating an abnormal environment, right? That's not normal. So we'll start doing it after a few days, right? After a few days. Now here's your problem. When you say something like that, what do clowns hear? So you're saying I could do it for 2 days straight, and every third day if I eat some fat, my body will stop storing, right? This is what they hear, not what I said. I don't have an exact number like that. And we're kind of coming back over to, like, what are you trying to do? Like, what in the world do you think you're going to get out of trying to do this? Other than just be really autistic or something, there's no reason for you to say, well, if I can do that, then I can eat much higher carbs, 2 days, gain less fat, add fat in on the third day, slow down the de novo lipogenesis, because they think that I meant that literally, that that's exactly how it happens, and we time it, and it's the same in every person. Okay, all I was saying is that de novo lipogenesis doesn't happen until we get into bizarre environments, but some of those environments take days to catch up. But you're still sustaining that bizarre environment. Just because you break it up every third day didn't make the really, really low-fat diet go away. So using that as an example, you guys already see why these hypotheticals become a problem and why I don't like to discuss them? They're not useful. They create problems and stupidity and complexity that doesn't need to exist. But back over to the refeed thing. Okay, when we're talking large amounts of calorie surplus, thousands, like 3,000 and 4,000 calorie surpluses in these studies, these women didn't gain very much body fat. Notice I didn't say zero, I said not very much. In other words, they gained only the fat from the fat calories they ate. So if they ate 300 calories of fat that day, they stored all of that as body fat, but they didn't store the carbohydrate, and only a couple of grams. Super compensated their glycogen and everything else, right? So people will hear you discuss this and say, aha, this is a beautiful cutting strategy. That means I could run a deficit all week, and every Saturday I could do an extremely low carb or extremely low fat, high carbohydrate refeed if I've been eating low carbs all week, and I can eat 6,000 calories, 8,000 calories, whatever. Almost none of it's going to convert to body fat, then I can go back to losing body fat. I mean, that's what they hear. Come back over to the other issue. Calories in, calories out. You don't think all those glycogen super compensated glycogen stores, I got that wrong. You don't think that that's now going to be your body's fuel source for the next week? You think you're going to start losing body fat 48 hours after you do that? No. Basically, you've just gone to maintenance probably for a whole week. The net result might be zero fat loss for weeks on end doing this. So now you're suffering doing a binge and purge cycle that may not be giving you any progress. And I'm not saying there haven't been successful recomp protocols written for this, but they are very specific and very exact, and the sort of people who are trying to test hypothesis will change something and they'll ruin it. I mean, yeah, guys like Lyle McDonald have written about ways to do it in excruciating detail. And he tells you it won't work unless you do it exactly how I do. There's no interpretation or wiggle room. I therefore don't really recommend this. So here's the issue. When we discuss hypotheticals, it just creates a mess. Nobody benefits. It's nice to know from a body of knowledge, but it's not useful for the viewer. It just creates problems. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.